Welcome back to Pulse of the Planet, bringing you the latest news from around the world. In a decision that will echo for years to come, the Supreme Court has fundamentally reshaped American trade policy, marking a pivotal moment in the balance of power between the branches of government. For decades, presidents have wielded broad emergency powers to unilaterally impose tariffs, often bypassing the traditional legislative process. Now, the court has sharply curtailed that authority, signaling a new era in which the executive branch can no longer act alone on sweeping trade measures. The ruling returns significant economic control from the White House to Congress, halting decades of growing executive influence over trade. This shift restores a constitutional balance, empowering lawmakers to have a direct say in shaping the nation's economic future. From now on, major tariffs will require open congressional debate and formal approval, ending the era of executive-imposed trade barriers. This means that any sweeping changes to trade policy must be openly discussed, scrutinized, and voted on by elected representatives. The decision is rooted in the major questions doctrine, a legal principle that insists transformative economic policies need clear legislative backing. The court emphasized that when the stakes are high, only Congress has the authority to make such impactful decisions. The case stemmed from aggressive tariff use during the Trump administration, which bypassed Congress using emergency statutes. This approach sparked controversy, raising questions about the limits of presidential power and the need for democratic oversight. The court's verdict reasserts the constitutional principle that Congress, not the president, controls trade and taxation. It's a reminder that the nation's founders intended for the people's representatives to have the final say on matters that affect the entire economy. Supporters of free trade and checks on executive power celebrate the decision, seeing it as a victory for transparency and accountability. Meanwhile, protectionist industries and those who benefited from swift executive action now brace for a more uncertain, deliberative process. The debate over tariffs now moves from the Oval Office to Congress, where it will be shaped by public deliberation, legislative negotiation, and the voices of citizens across the country. The future of American trade policy will be determined not by a single leader, but by the collective will of the nation's lawmakers. A tariff is a tax placed on imported goods, designed to make those products more expensive when they enter a country. Governments use tariffs as a tool to influence trade, shaping what ends up on store shelves and how much we pay for it. By increasing the cost of imports, tariffs can shift the balance between foreign and domestic products. When tariffs are imposed, the price tags on imported goods often rise, making them less attractive to shoppers. This gives domestic products a competitive edge, encouraging consumers to buy goods made closer to home. For many families, this can mean choosing between a familiar brand from abroad and a local alternative that suddenly seems more affordable. Take French wine, for example. If the US adds a 25% tariff, the price of that bottle jumps significantly. Shoppers might think twice, opting for an American wine instead. Over time, these small decisions can shift entire markets, changing what products are available and which industries thrive. Historically, tariffs were a major source of government revenue, funding everything from infrastructure to national defense. Today, their main purpose is to shield domestic industries from foreign competition, giving local businesses a chance to grow and maintain jobs. Industries like U.S. steel often benefit from these protections, as tariffs can help keep foreign competitors at bay. But for other sectors, such as car manufacturers who rely on imported parts, tariffs can mean higher production costs, making it harder to compete both at home and abroad. These increased costs are frequently passed on to consumers, leading to higher prices at the checkout. At the same time, American products can become more expensive for buyers overseas, reducing demand for U.S. exports and putting pressure on local businesses. Tariffs can also spark retaliation from other countries. When one nation raises barriers, others often respond in kind, escalating into trade wars that disrupt global supply chains and threaten jobs across multiple industries. For instance, when the U.S. imposed tariffs on European steel, the European Union hit back with tariffs on American goods like soybeans and motorcycles. This tit-for-tat approach can hurt American farmers, manufacturers, and workers, sometimes in unexpected ways. The impact of tariffs ripples through the economy. While some sectors may gain temporary protection, many others face losses. And the uncertainty can make it difficult for businesses to plan for the future. What seems like a simple tax on imports can set off a chain reaction. with consequences that reach far beyond the original intent, affecting jobs, prices, and even international relationships. Crafting trade policy is a delicate balancing act. Lawmakers must weigh the need to protect local jobs against the goal of keeping prices low for consumers, all while considering the broader impact on the economy. The latest ruling demands a more open, democratic process for making these tough decisions, ensuring that the voices of workers, businesses, and consumers are all heard as the nation navigates the complex world of global trade. For decades, U.S. trade policy was shaped by bipartisan support for free markets and congressional oversight. The Trump administration broke with tradition, using emergency powers to impose sweeping tariffs without Congress. This aggressive approach, justified by broad interpretations of laws like IEEPA, sparked legal and constitutional challenges. The resulting uncertainty for businesses set the stage for the Supreme Court's decision to rein in executive authority. The Supreme Court's ruling didn't judge tariffs' merits, but clarified who holds the power: Congress. The justices found that only Congress can levy major taxes and regulate trade as the Constitution intended. The court ruled that emergency statutes like IEEPA don't grant the president blanket authority to impose tariffs. This decision checks the imperial presidency and forces Congress to reclaim its central policy-making role. Going forward, major trade decisions must be debated and voted on in Congress, restoring constitutional balance. The Supreme Court's ruling immediately transforms the landscape for both American businesses and everyday consumers. This decision marks a significant shift in how trade policy is made and who holds the power to shape it. For companies that rely heavily on imported goods, the removal of executive-imposed tariffs means a direct reduction in costs. As these tariffs disappear, businesses can source products and materials at lower prices, which could lead to more competitive pricing on store shelves. Shoppers may soon notice that everyday items, from clothing to electronics, become more affordable as these savings are passed along. However, domestic industries that once benefited from tariff protections, such as steel and aluminum manufacturers, now face increased competition from abroad. These industries will need to adapt quickly, possibly by innovating or improving efficiency, and will likely turn to Congress to advocate for new forms of support or protection. For consumers, the impact will be gradual but noticeable. As global supply chains adjust to the new rules, prices on a wide range of goods, especially electronics, appliances, and imported products, are expected to decline over time. This could mean more choices and better deals for families and individuals. Perhaps the most important change is the new sense of predictability. Businesses can now make long-term plans and investments without the constant threat of sudden executive orders disrupting their strategies. This stability encourages growth, innovation, and job creation. Trade policy will now be crafted through open legislative debate in Congress, rather than being dictated by presidential tweets or abrupt executive actions. This process, while sometimes slower, allows for more voices to be heard and for policies to be carefully considered. While the legislative process may take more time, it brings greater transparency and stability to the system. Businesses and consumers alike can better anticipate changes and plan accordingly. Ultimately, this new approach gives both businesses and consumers a clearer, more reliable environment, one where decisions are made openly, and everyone has a better sense of what to expect in the future. The decision creates winners and losers among American workers and communities. Industrial towns may face job losses as tariff protections vanish, while sectors relying on imports or exports could see gains. Farmers may regain access to foreign markets, and global allies welcome a return to predictable U.S. trade policy. The ruling prompts a national debate: protect legacy industries or embrace global competition for lower prices and stronger exports. With Congress now in charge, these choices will be made openly, reflecting the interests of all Americans. The Supreme Court's decision on tariffs signals a broader judicial pushback against unchecked executive power. By invoking the major questions doctrine, the court insists that only Congress can authorize sweeping national policies. This logic could limit presidential authority in areas beyond trade, from sanctions to environmental regulation. The ruling recenters the legislative process, demanding that major decisions be made through open debate and clear laws. The Supreme Court's decision restores Congress's constitutional role in trade, reinforcing democratic principles. Trade policy will now be shaped by public debate and legislative consensus, not executive orders. This shift brings stability and predictability for businesses, allies, and trading partners. Congress faces the challenge of balancing competing interests and making tough choices in the open. The ruling strengthens America's credibility as a reliable global leader. Ultimately, it affirms that the nation's biggest economic decisions belong to the many, not the few.